The final thing I'll just say is for all of you who aren't sure what projection is a Freudian concept. Freud came up with the idea that if I as an individual am experiencing thoughts, feelings and desires that I don't like or that clash with my self-image, then I will project them outward onto a target, which could be a person, an institution or a thing. And by projecting outward, I don't have to own those I'm not a jealous person. I'm just not a jealous guy. I'm too cool to be jealous. So if I feel jealousy, I might push it outward, or whatever it is, some unpleasant emotion, rage, anger, sadness. Sometimes sadness gets projected outward. Very often weakness gets projected outward.
A very famous defense mechanism is projection. We all have an image of how we should be. Freud called it the ego ideal. But sometimes we experience emotions and drives or have personal qualities which don't sit well with this idealized construct of ours. Projection is when we attribute to others these unacceptable, discomforting and ill-fitting feelings and traits that we ourselves possess. This way we disown these discordant features and secure the right to criticize and chastise others for having or displaying them. And then there is projective identification. Projection is unconscious. People are rarely aware that they are projecting onto others their own ego-dystonic and unpleasant characteristics and feelings. But sometimes the projected content is retained in the subject's awareness. This creates a conflict. On the one hand, the patient cannot admit that the emotions, traits, reactions and behaviors that he so condemns in others are really his own. On the other hand, he can't help but being self-aware of this. He fails to erase from his consciousness the painful realization that he is merely projecting, that he is actually what he condemns in others. So instead of denying it, the subject explains unpleasant emotions and unacceptable conduct as reactions to the recipient's behavior. Such people say, "She made me do it," and that is the battle cry of projective identification of abusers. We all have expectations regarding the world and its denizens. Some people expect to be loved and appreciated. Others expect to be feared and abused. The latter type behave obnoxiously and thus force their nearest and dearest to hate, fear, and abuse them exactly as they had expected. Thus vindicated, their expectations fulfilled, they calm down. The world is rendered once more familiar by making other people behave the way that they expect them to. "I know you would cheat on me," they say. "It was clear I couldn't trust you." And having said it often enough, surely the spouse would cheat. He takes all these things that contradict his grandiose self and he throws them out. He projects them onto other people. He says, "It's not me. It's not I'm not weak. I'm not stupid. I'm not out of control. It's not me. It's you. It's other people." You remember we were discussing projection. Projection is a simple defense mechanism. I don't want to think of myself as weak, so I project it. You are weak. I don't want to think of myself as angry. I'm not angry, you are angry. I don't want to think of myself as unfaithful, so I would suspect you of cheating on me, on being disloyal. So it's projection. This is simple. But projective identification also involves forcing the target of the projection to conform to the contents of the projection. Forcing someone to actually become someone else. Rage, envy, contempt, abusive conduct, shame, they are all projected onto the target, and then the target is forced to behave this way, is forced to become envious, is forced to become abusive, is forced to become contemptuous. It's like body snatching, soul snatching, but he uses the projection to mold the other person, to reconstruct the other person, to break the other person apart and put him back together differently. He rejects these things. He refuses to own them because they challenge his self-deception, his false self. They challenge his ability to regulate his labile sense of self-worth. So instead, what he does, he takes these negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative urges, negative impulses, and he farms them out. He outsources them to other people around him. But at the same time, he pressures them to act these roles in the screenplay of his life. He forces them to affirm what he knows about the world and what he knows about himself.